Well, it ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe. It don't matter anyhow. And it ain't no use to sit and wonder
George,
why,
Clay and Zach,
babe.
our producer, are having a little too much fun with the music selection today. We are back with the best of Saturday Talk Radio on Taking Care of Business on Kern Radio Newstalk 1180. Our guest by phone is former state senator and Board of Equalization member George Runner.
Hey, George, before Marty starts, you were talking about Proposition 13 and
Yes.
So that people could afford to stay in their homes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you have studied the new Obamacare legislation at all, the new health care bill, you'll find that the equity in a home is now additionally taxed at another 3.8%.
Huh.
Yeah, once you sell the house. Sure.
Right, when you sell the house.
When you sell the house?
Yes. There's an additional tax.
That's another
on the sale of the
new
house.
tax. So,
Wow.
I mean, every time you turn around, there's another new tax.
Well, again, that's just the nature of government is to just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's why it is that, we really need to figure out what government really needs to do and limit it so that, because, again, part of the problem is that many Americans, many Californians just think it's great to have government services. Let somebody take care of this. And the problem is that it's unending. And once the government has its direction to do something, it will do it, but it'll do it in a less efficient, more expensive way every time.
We have a few examples, don't we? Let's see, the post office, Social Security, Medi-Cal, Medicare. We go on and on of how wonderful they've done.
Yeah, it's endless. And again, some of those issues. Again, we it's whenever you talk about government services, it's easy to think about, or easy for people to fall in. Well, who's going to take care of this problem? And so then we turn to the government to try to take care of it. And it's again, I think it's eating more and more of people's money. What I like to remind people of: the more money that you pay out of your pocket, the more money you pay out of your paycheck for government services, for taxes, is really what the bottom line is for the taxes. It's less personal liberty you have. It's choices that government is making for you that you can't make because you no longer have the resources to make those. So it's a true attack on liberty when it is that overtaxation takes place.
One thing that frustrated me the other day, and I hate to bring this up, but I'm going to, is I met a gentleman who just turned 65, and he didn't have his 40 quarters for Social Security, so he doesn't qualify for Medicare. He can't get any benefits for medical or any Social Security income, lived in the United States all of his life, but if he was to sneak across the border, he'd be fully taken care of. Something wrong with that picture.
Well, and I guess on that example, he has the same access to health care that an illegal alien has.
Right.
You've got, again, in America, we don't let people just die alongside of the road, regardless whether they have an insurance card or not.
This is true.
We choose to go ahead and take care of people, even without insurance. And so that's where it is that we have these big expenses, obviously, for those who are here illegally. But it also applies to an individual such as that who, has no other kind of insurance at that point. So it's just in one sense, I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that in the sense that we don't let people do that. And the problem we have is because we don't enforce our border, it then gets extended then to a whole group of individuals who sneak across borders, who end up with access to our health care, to our schools, to lots of services that then end up falling on the backs of other taxpayers.
We're having a conversation with 2nd District Board of Equalization member George Runner.
George, I'm really glad you said that because no one in this country does not have access to health insurance. Even though
health care.
Health care, health care. Even though our president said they don't, they do.
That's absolutely true.
So,
that's absolutely true. I mean, again, people just need to think about that. If that was not true, you would have people who were literally dying on the streets.
Right, exactly.
And again, that seems extreme, but that's what happens in many other places around the world.
Sure.
And we don't. We choose. You don't have to. You go out and do an emergency room. You don't have to say, "Here's my health," and they'll say, "Do you have your health insurance card?" or do you have a bunch of cash? And you'd say no. They'd say, well, I'm sorry, we can't see you then. They don't. They get health care delivery. Mm-hmm. Now, it's probably not the most efficient, effective way to get health care delivery, but nobody's denied health care at that point in the United States.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to get off on health care very far, but as you know, George, my family's Canadian originally, and my dad's up there, and he had to wait 6 weeks for an MRI because he had to wait for the, quote, machine to get to his town. I mean, that's ludicrous.
The problem. When you get to the issue of trying to create control on costs, because again, if you have a government system and a program, that's what you're trying to. That's what you end up with is controlling cost. Now, there's another phrase for controlling cost, and that's called rationing.
Exactly.
And rationing is done in a number of different ways. It's done by how quickly you can see somebody. Now, quite frankly, some insurance companies handle it that way. They make it while you go through a process in order to see a specialist. And so in that sense, sometimes the process slows down, and that's how you kind of, quote, sometimes save money on delivery. Then people either don't get the service or they choose to change their mind. But the other way you do it is you just decide, hey, to this group of people, we're not going to give this service. We don't surprise if you're 85 years old and you need a hip replacement. You know what? We only do that for people who are 80 and below. We don't do it for an 85-year-old.
Yeah.
And so that becomes the problem whenever you try to then say, let's save some money on health care delivery. It's going to come down to rationing, and it's going to come down to services that just aren't going to be provided.
As our president so eloquently said, go home and take a pain pill.
Well, that's, and I think that is unfortunately the process to which. Now, the problem is, and this is where we got the controversy going on with the death panels and all that, somebody's going to make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not.
There's going to be a policy driven that's going to decide that, and there's going to be a review panel out there somewhere. So, in that sense, I know insurance companies take a lot of heat for not paying this or doing bad that or not paying that or being too slow to pay that or whatever. That happens, and it becomes part of their business model, and sometimes they have to be corrected when they make some bad choices. But let me tell you, I'd rather have an independent insurance company that can be pressured then in order to make the right decision than a government. Because there is no pressure that you put on the government then once they decide what their guidelines are.
Yeah, no question about it. What's different, George, now with Brown in office as opposed to Schwarzenegger from your standpoint and Sharon's standpoint being back in the State Senate? It's
kind of interesting. I mean, in one sense, I was not encouraged much at all during the Schwarzenegger years. I think we lost a lot of opportunities. Whether it be in helping to make California a much more business-friendly state, whether it be in trying to put together reasonable environmental laws and standards. Unfortunately, Governor Schwarzenegger led the way in some unreasonable standards at that point. And so that was discouraging at that point. But right now my concern is, as I see these bills that are moving through the legislature right now, that are the kinds of bills that Governor Schwarzenegger did veto, and know that probably most likely they are going to be signed now. It's a bit chilling, the other issue I look at is appointments. I wasn't always happy with the Schwarzenegger appointments, but at least 50% of them went to somebody who I thought was at least a bit of a conservative. Whether it be in certain government agencies or whether it be judges. Mm-hmm. That's certainly not what you're seeing right now. There is no balance at all to appointments, decisions that are being made in the Brown administration. So, I'm a believer that the people get what they ask for, and they're getting what they voted for. And I believe that in the next couple of years they're going to be quickly rejecting that, both based upon the issue of taxes that people want to increase on them and a highly regulated business climate, which is going to chase more and more businesses out of the state of California. And I think people are going to see that over the next couple of years, and they're going to say, we've had enough of it.
Oh, yeah, no question about it. And, the one issue he's not going to touch is unions. He's not going to go anywhere near there. There was a great article I was about to show Clay in the Wall Street Journal talking about an editorial entitled "California Prison Academy: Better Than a Harvard Degree." I don't know if you saw that this morning or not.
I did not. I saw the title of it, but I can guess what the process
great!
is.
I mean, the writer talks about how you're really better off trying to get a job in the prison system in California than you are trying to get a Harvard degree, because you'll retire with more money based on the averages. It's a lot more cost efficient, and you're going to end up making more money over your career as a prison guard than you would graduating from Harvard school.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's crazy. What are we going to do with the unions?
I think all unions are playing a dangerous game right now, in the fact that there is a lot of concern on the behalf of Californians about the unique benefits that are earned by public employees that are out of line with what private employees are giving. And what I'm seeing is almost a denial of that on the part of public employee unions. And what we're seeing then are some of these contracts right now, and even some of the ones that were passed out last year, that they say are reform, or that were said to be reform, and aren't saving the kinds of money that were projected, and are certainly outside of what it is still that the average private citizen gets in their benefit process. So the dangerous game, I think, that the public employee unions are playing is that if they don't understand that, and they don't come to realistic understandings as to what the reasonableness of their contracts are, it's going to go to a ballot initiative, and it's going to be far more draconian than what they would be doing if they'd simply probably sit down and negotiate right now with Republican legislators.
George, if you ever decide to run for governor, would you let me know? I'd be more than willing to jump on the bandwagon. When we come back, and I know you're pressured for time, so we're not going to keep you the whole time, but when we come back, let's talk a little bit about the presidential sweepstakes, okay?
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, we'll be back in a minute on Taking Care of Business on Kern Radio Newstalk 1180.